What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, the Ol Drunken Geek, and today I'm gonna continue my segment which I call ODG Fanfix. So if you guys haven't watched the first one, we'll link it down in the comment section. And what I basically do is I take an old movie and I make it better, make it how I would make it. And right now I've been going through the DCEU movies, where I started with the Green Lantern, the first one from 2011. And actually the only one that's come out, the only movie that's come out for Green Lantern. And this is be the second one, 2013's Man of Steel. So let's get rolling. So I actually did like 2013's Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. And I just had a lot of problems with it. I didn't think the movie was complete trash, but I did have some problems with it. So I kind of found it hard because, you know, the Green Lantern fanfix, I did that, like, I just overhauled the whole movie completely. I just did it over. This movie, I'm just fixing little things, so I found it kind of hard, so I'm gonna do it in top 10 format. This is gonna be 10 ways in which I would improve this movie. So let's get it rolling. Number 10, lighten the tone. Now, I know that this point has been made. This point has been beat like a porn star's tonsils. It's been beat to death. But it is a valid point because Superman has often been portrayed as a upbeat, positive, beacon of hope character who, you know, whose moral fiber we use as an example to be better in our lives. Like if somebody with like the powers of a god can dedicate themselves for the betterment of mankind, we can at least do the right thing, like, you know, recycle this beer bottle. Now, this is where a lot of the DC fans felt betrayed by this darker, grittier version of Superman. With that being said, though, I feel like a darker Superman, maybe not quite as dark as they made him, like a darker DCEU as a whole, was not a bad impulse coming from DC Comics. See what I did there? Impulse. The reason I feel this way is because I feel like the DC stories lend themselves to a darker tone than Marvel. You know, the jokey, light-hearted Marvel movies, which are good, but they are that. And, you know, if DC could have nailed the darkness, it would have been a nice contrast against this lighter, jokier Marvel universe. As far as Superman, the character himself, I feel like a slightly lighter, but still very dark tone would still serve the character very well, because he was not Superman yet. This movie, he's still like a proto-Superman. He's still learning how to be Superman. It's very much like what Batman Begins was for the Dark Knight movies. This movie was that for what was supposed to be the Superman movies, which we already know they completely botched later on. But just speaking as far as this movie's concerned, it was called Man of Steel because he's a man. He's an individual. Even though he's got godlike powers, he's still an individual trying to find his way in the world. So I felt like this movie, definitely this movie, could have lent itself to darker tones, just not quite as dark and dour as the movie did make it. So even though I felt the darkness works, not 100%. I will point out through the video which parts I felt were like, okay, this was too dark. And some of the things that I'm like, that's fine to keep in. I didn't think that was a problem at all. So moving on. Number 9, change in pacing. Now to me, this movie was all over the place. The pacing was a little bit sloppy, and the quick cuts and, you know, the time jumps made it a little bit hard to follow. I feel like if the cuts would have been a bit smoother and like maybe the story told just a little bit more linearly, they could have still done some flashbacks and stuff like that. That obviously was a big part of the movie, but if they just would have taken the time to make it a bit smoother and a bit easier to follow, this would have just yielded better results in the movie as a whole. Yes. Number 8, more Krypton. One of the things I had the problem with starting off the movie right off back, one of my biggest problems with it was how quickly they moved on Krypton, man. When they were in Krypton, it felt like they were going from scene to scene to scene to scene. And I felt even though they introduced everything they needed to introduce, all the ideas, I felt like none of those scenes were given any kind of room to breathe. I feel like just an extra 5 more minutes in Krypton, just letting some of those scenes settle and giving us more details and stuff like that would have given us a better understanding of their world and a better understanding of certain characters like General Zod, Lara L, also their world as far as like the politics and their technology. You know, I felt like it would have paid off in the future, even if it was just right there with the destruction of Krypton. it would have emotionally paid off a lot more. There's also a lot of things that kind of defy logic, a lot of silly things that I didn't like when Jor-El is in the middle of a fucking battle, there's spaceships and shit, and he jumps on a fucking dragon of all things. Like, there's a dragon just waiting for him. It's like, oh, there are tanks and Humvees rolling around in a battle war situation and you jump on a horse. It's so stupid, it made no sense to me. Little things like that could get cut, or like, you know, if they put more detail into how they put the codex into Clark, you know, in the movie it was like, oh, let's sprinkle some bones on the baby. Like, if they would have took more time to explain that, done it in a better way, I feel like it would have just been a better result altogether. Not only that, my whole beef with like the Lara character, you know, Clark's biological mother, was like, so Jor-El made this super Krypton flash drive that houses his whole personality, but he couldn't put her personality in there too? That's kind of fucked up, man. The boy needs his mother. So yeah, I figure if you change those things about Krypton, just add another 5 minutes, man, and just would have made it, you know, with a little bit more love for these characters. Even if you are gonna kill them right away, they are gonna show up as a flash drive, they are gonna show up as a villain, so why not? Number 7, Clark's dad. Now, one of my absolute favorite things about this movie was Henry Cavill's performance. I felt that he played Superman as very polite, very earnest, very meek, but at the same time very confident and very poised character. I liked the whole thing with him wandering around the planet, just trying to find out and figure out who he is and where he comes from, and just helping people. And I felt that his performance kind of flew under the radar. Get it? Flew under the radar? No. I felt this performance flew under the radar because everything that informed that part of the movie hindered on this one scene that just didn't stick completely. The whole motivation for him wanting to do this was because his dad sacrificed himself and he let his dad die in a tornado accident. Now, I feel like the scene is a symptom of a larger problem, and that is Superman's dad. Now, with his mother, you feel like Clark learned a lot of compassion and empathy from her. Her scenes are very beautiful and very personal. As opposed to his dad, man, who the whole movie he's telling him, don't use your powers, not even to help people. It doesn't matter if people are in danger, you can't use your powers. And, you know, it all culminates to that one scene where his dad is in a tornado and he can't save him. He lets his dad die. That is the most un-Superman thing ever. Superman would never let anybody, let alone his dad, die. Even for, you know, a cause that his dad believes in. I felt that it would have been a better situation if the whole movie, his dad is just wrestling, you know, and, you know, conflicted with the fact, you know, between protecting his son from the world and letting his son be a beacon of hope and saving the world. Now, they try to do some of that, but I felt like they fumbled it. I felt like, you know, Jonathan Kent wasn't conflicted enough in the situation. Now, if that had been the case through the movie, how the whole tornado scene would have played out would have been different in my version. This is what would have happened. And now, also, just as a preface to that, my version is also inspired a little bit from the original Superman movie, in which Clark just has, you know, he lives with his mom and dad, and, you know, he's still young, he's not Superman yet, and his dad just dies of a heart attack, which is something he can't help at all. His dad had a heart attack. Oh well, you know, even though he's got superpowers and he's basically a god, he still can't control some things. Now, to do a heart attack, that's like a carbon copy, and we don't want to do that. I would have done it a little twist on that. So I would have still kept the scene with the tornado and his dad telling him, "Don't save me," because all the people are there watching. But I would have had Clark disobey him because there's no way in hell he's gonna let his dad die. He's fucking Superman. He would have saved his dad, and, you know, they would have ended up at the hospital to check him out, you know, just to keep appearances. And they would have discovered that his dad has cancer. Similar to a heart attack, a little bit less, you know, like at the moment, a little less immediate. But this would have, you know, also given Clark that moment of, fuck, I don't control everything around me, even though I have all these powers. Also, that would have let his father know that, like, you know, fuck, he can save people. He saved me. He can do this for other people that are in danger. And in his deathbed, his dad could have told him something like, I was wrong. Go and save people. Which at the same time, it could have given Clark a kind of Spider-Man-esque arc where he has X-ray vision. He could have found the cancer in his dad had he had just been paying attention. Had he embraced who he was as a Kryptonian, he could have saved his dad. So on multiple levels, it would work in Clark embracing his Kryptonian side and the reason why he would go off and try to find Kryptonian science for the world, not just for himself, but also a very personal journey. Number 6, Lois Lane. Now, personally, I really like Amy Adams as the Lois Lane character, and in this movie, she was the most Lois Lane that she has been in DCEU. She was more Lois Lane than she was in Justice League, and more Lois Lane than she was in Batman v Superman. And what I mean by the most Lois Lane is Lois Lane is a character that she's a reporter. She's about the story. She's fearless. She's single-minded about getting the story, and she's gonna get it. She's not gonna take no for an answer. And she is like this in this movie. Even though I felt that with just the right direction, Amy Adams could have even been more of that character. I felt like she was held back a little bit. And I've seen her in other things like American Hustle, where she was, a more obsessed, passionate character. And I feel like Lois Lane could have benefited from some of that energy. My problem with Lois Lane in this movie is that halfway through the movie or toward the end, it feels like she has nothing to do. She also has like a gratuitous scene which I didn't like. I felt like it should have been later on in the movie, which was the scene where she helps Clark out in the spaceship, when he's with the Kryptonians and stuff like that. I felt like if you could have spread that scene out toward the end and had her do other things in the middle, it could have spread out her presence in the movie as a person, because she is in many ways the equal to Superman. Even though he's super powerful, he's a god and all that, he has enough respect for her and enough love for her to consider her an equal, because she's just as brave as he is. She has no powers. She could get popped in the, capped in the head at any moment, and she does not give a fuck because she believes in what is right, and what is right is her story. And yeah, man, I felt like that could have been a little bit better. Also, anybody who knows deep cuts DC Comics knows that Lois Lane's dad is a army general. So I felt like that could have been used in the movie as well. And maybe her dad is dead too. He is deceased, just like Clark's dad, thus making some connective tissue between them personally. They both have fathers that have passed on. Not only that, she can also help Clark with her father's old military buddies, and helping the military trust Clark when the Kryptonians eventually come, and being like, no, this guy's trustworthy. I've done a dossier on him. And since she is known and revered by the military people, that she could help out in that way, maybe not just only a physical way. Also, the other thing that I would like in this movie is if Clark and Lois's relationship was kept completely platonic. No kissing, no romance, none of that stuff. They just have respect for each other, and they're friends, and they have a lot of compassion toward each other because they understand each other. I felt like a couple more scenes also with just Amy Adams and Henry Cavill. Scenes that had nothing to do with, Krypton or aliens or Superman. Scenes that just about them would have worked a lot better and just made the movie and the two characters better for it. Number 5, Zod and his goons. Now, to me, there were way too many fucking Kryptonians on that ship. Like, when they were banished to the Phantom Zone, there were like 12 Kryptonians there. So 12 Kryptonians show up on Earth. Yet, we only see 3 Kryptonians get out of the ship. 3 Kryptonians. I felt like that was too many Kryptonians on that fucking ship, man. I felt like if they released themselves from the Phantom Zone when Krypton exploded, and now they were just kind of out in space, on a voyage, an unknown voyage, kind of like, Magellan and Christopher Columbus, something like that, most of their crew should have died. I felt like that would have been a good way to just keep the numbers low. Maybe you could have had Jack Sword, the scientist dude, General Zod, Mala, the chick that did all the karate stuff, and that big dude, whatever his name, Baboon or whatever the fuck his name was. Just 4 people that are the last survivors of this situation they've been in for a long time. All of Clark's life, basically, they've been just wandering around space from station to station trying to get shit, trying to see what they could do. Also, not only the idea of losing people along the way, you could have also hinted at the idea of a possible mutiny that might have happened, and Zod being just a heartless bastard and killing some of his crew because a possible mutiny might have happened. You could, hint to that. You don't show it or anything like that, but just mention it in passing and stuff like that. I think that would be a really cool idea. Also, I felt like the whole scene where Clark goes up to their spaceship and he has that dream, that induced dream, it bogs the movie down way too much, man. I think it was stupid, it was silly, it was unnecessary. Like I said, that whole scene where Jor-El, and in my movie, Lara L as well, help Amy Adams defeat their ship or whatever, that could be pushed till the end. So you just skip that whole scene with the dream, with Clark going into their ship. I felt like that was completely unnecessary and silly, to be honest. The whole thing with the skulls, that was way too much, and it drags the movie down at that point. Number 4, no world engine. Now, I know a lot of people like that dubstep world engine that was going to destroy the world. To me, it was also unnecessary. It was too much. It was like, oh, so it's a planetary thing. It's a planetary problem. Where do you go from here in Justice League? Who do they have to face in Justice League? Well, they're going to destroy the planet again? Like, I felt it should have been a lot more localized to Metropolis, because like Batman is the hero of Gotham, Superman is the hero of Metropolis. I felt like if just the whole situation with the Kryptonians would have been localized to Metropolis, that would have just gave them more of a place to go in next movies coming up. Also, the whole logic of the world engine, when I first viewed it, made no sense to me. It confused the hell out of me, because it was like, oh, so we're gods on this planet we just found, and oh, now we're gonna terraform the planet so that we're not gods anymore? But upon more viewings of the movie, I realized that it's certain aspects of Earth's atmosphere don't agree with Kryptonian physiology. They're just gonna remove those aspects. They're still gonna keep their powers. But just the fact that this whole plot line is so confusing and unnecessary, I feel like we could just sidestep that, man. Just skip all that. Have, the Kryptonians come to Earth and they fight Superman a couple times, and and then you get to the end where you get rid of the Kryptonians, and then you have the big face-off with General Zod. I felt like that would make the movie a lot tighter, a lot shorter, and a lot more interesting in my opinion. Number 3, connect to a larger world. Now, what I mean by that is connected both in the macro and in the micro in a way, because I feel like we should have built out Superman's little corner of the DCEU. These are the characters that are going to be in the Superman movies, and I also feel like they should have introduced characters that should have been in the broader DCEU. Now, let's start with the characters just in Superman's corner for just the DCEU movies. They killed off 2 really cool characters, which were Professor Hamilton and General Hardy. Now, General Hardy was the dude that was throughout the whole movie. He was like the one that was kind of dealing with Superman, and he had a very respectful relationship with Superman. He's the one that when he was fighting that Kryptonian, he had the machine gun, and she slaps that out of his hand. He pulls out the 50 cal, and she slaps that out of his hand, and he just pulls out the fucking knife. He's like, fuck bitch, let's get this shit rolling. And she was like laughing, kind of smirking, like, yeah, he a thug life ass motherfucker. That dude was a cool character, and then they killed him off in the movie. Then you never see him again. Also, Professor Hamilton, another character that they killed off in the movie that I felt they could have kept later on. Those 2 characters, I felt like in future movies, they could have been built up a little bit more. Maybe in the 3rd or 4th movie, they could have turned on them like they did in that cartoon Superman Legendary or whatever that movie was called. I forget, where Superman gets turned dark by Darkseid or something like that. Or or like the Justice League show where Professor Hamilton creates a clone of Supergirl. Doesn't have to be those storylines, but things like that could happen in future movies if you would have just kept these characters around. I didn't like that they killed them off. Furthermore, the characters that they could have introduced for the DCEU as a whole, They could have just had a very short scene, either name dropping or showing Amanda Waller, because why wouldn't she be involved in a situation like this? She deals with metahumans. It's obvious she would be in something like this. Not only that, I would introduce Martian Manhunter. Use whatever actor you want. He's a shapeshifter. Just be like, oh, this guy is John Jones. Just name drop him. Just things like that. I know that they did the whole thing with satellite, with the satellite of Wayne Industries and stuff like that in the LexCorp truck. That was like Easter egg level. I feel like it should have been a more tangible way of connecting it to the larger universe. Not only that, and this is just me. It's not part of my thing, not part of my spiel, but I feel like Terry Crews would make a bomb-ass Martian Manhunter. And if you could just had him walk on set and said some shit like, yeah, okay, whatever. Boom. You introduce Martian Manhunter, there you go. You just say, name drop him, oh, Agent Jones or whatever, you know what I mean? And say, oh, isn't John Jones, that's fucking Martian Manhunter. And just bring him on later on into, you know, the Justice League movie and stuff like that. I feel like those little through lines would have added a touch of like, yeah, man, like Nick Fury at the end of Iron Man, you know, just let you know that this shit is all connected. Number 2, the fights. Now, personally, I loved the Dragon Ball Z action in this fucking movie, man. He was putting motherfuckers through walls and through buildings and through all kinds of shit. However, I felt like everybody else felt, it's like Superman doesn't care about bystanders and collateral damage. He's not trying to take it out to the desert somewhere like Goku and shit. That's one thing that I felt this movie had. Like, you have no notion of who Superman is. I felt like all through his fight with Zod keeps pushing the motherfucker through the buildings and shit and hurting kids and shit like that. That is Superman's weak point. That is the edge that Zod has on Superman. Because Superman's been on fucking Earth for like 30 something years. And all of a sudden some motherfucker comes here, spends 2 minutes in the sun and he can't even fully take it, and now all of a sudden I'm strong as you. The edge he should have had on Superman was the fact that he is a villain. He'll still like, you know, slap some pregnant chick and just like she's dead. And Superman the whole time's trying to stop shit like that from happening. That I feel, and obviously he should be trying to take him out to the desert, but you know, Zod is too strong at this point. He sucked up enough Ray, just suck it off the sun and stuff like that, and just like sucked it up, you know. So another thing is like I would have made the action play out more or less like it did in the movie. To be honest, I would have had them fight both of Zod's lackeys and fuck them up, so they go up to their ship to like heal and regroup and shit. And that's, you know, this is at the very end, so that's when Lois Lane would come in with the help of the military and, you know, his super Kryptonian flash drive with his mom and dad in there, and triggered the Phantom Zone inside the ship. Because at this point they would still be traveling in that original Phantom Zone ship. They wouldn't have picked up extra shit and world engines, like I said. No world engines. Just the Kryptonian ship, and you make that suck, you know, go to the Phantom Zone. And now you have Zod stranded again while he's fighting Superman. And now you can have the big Dragon Ball Z Zod v Superman fight, which was awesome in my opinion. Number 1, the end. This is the end of the movie, the last battle, the last part of the movie. And the things that I would change about this, ironically enough, I would keep the snapping, yo. When he snaps fucking Zod's neck, I would keep that in the movie, to be honest. Because in my movie, it would have been a little bit more earned. Superman would have been trying to save families the whole time. And now that Zod is gonna destroy a fucking family, you know, he's got his fucking laser beam eyes on them. Yeah, he's gonna snap his neck to save the family. Because at the end of the day, he's made the choice to destroy the last of, you know, the other person that's left of his race over the innocent, because he is above corruption. Superman is above corruption, and he's not gonna let one family die just to try to preserve one dude. You know, he makes this choice, but this choice changes him to the core in my movie. The choice he makes him officially the last son of Krypton. Even, you know, obviously in future movies I'd bring Supergirl because I just love Supergirl. But at this point, he believes that he is the last son of Krypton. However, this would not be the end of the movie for me. I would like to show more of Superman just dealing with them. You know, just this would be like, you know, the end part of the movie. You can say maybe this movie is gonna have 13 ends, like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Say that if you want to, but I would keep the movie going after like the titular action is finished. I would have him deal a little bit with him being the last son of Krypton and him dealing with what he has to do. And I would have him embrace the no-kill rule that the Justice League goes on with. Batman also obviously has that rule. I would have Superman, this would be the point in his life where he decides no more killing. And maybe in future movies he has to break that rule because, like I said, I'd like to make a darker DCEU than the Marvel. And in Marvel, they fucking kill. They don't give a fuck. Just let's not talk about that. But in Marvel, they're killing motherfuckers. But in this movie, this is where he makes the no-kill rule after he deals with the personal impact of having killed the last of his race. I would also have the ending scene not rushed like it was in the original movie. I'd have the ending scene also of him going into the Daily Planet as an intern. Because when I watched this movie, 2013, which at this point is 5 years ago, I had one of my homeboys, Alan, with me. I'm Alan, he's Alan too. I call him number 2. Alan, right? So he fucking got mad when fucking Superman rolls up to the Daily Planet and all of a sudden he's a reporter. He was fucking mad. He said, where the fuck did he get the credentials? This motherfucker ain't gone to college. I don't know what he was dealing with, but he has a point. Fucking, he didn't go to college. How is he just like a reporter off rip? I would instead have him start at the Daily Planet as a intern, and you see a nice little banter with him and Lois Lane. Because in past Superman incarnations, you have Lois Lane, a Pulitzer Prize winner reporter, that doesn't know that Superman is Clark Kent. That's stupid. In this universe, she knows, obviously. You already had a movie about it. But they kind of dismiss that, and they have like this cute little banter where he's pretending to be Clark Kent, and she's pretending to play along with it. And she's not saying anything about him, Superman, like, we've forgotten the situation. We just work at the same place. Hey, but that would be a nice way to leave it. Now, as my very last scene of the movie, I would harken back to a scene earlier in this movie, which I haven't mentioned yet in this video. It is the scene where Clark learns how to fly. It's a very beautiful scene where you get this feeling that he's embracing who he is. He's embracing the past of himself. And the whole scene is beautiful. He's jumping and trying and falling. I would mirror that scene at the end of the movie. He has, very similar gestures and stuff like that. And at this point in the movie, he's embracing not his past, but his future. He's embracing his destiny as Superman, things that are gonna come. And he's doing it over Metropolis, not over a barren snow wasteland type of, where how he learned how to fly. This is now over people. He's watching over people. And I feel like that parallel would just be a beautiful brooch to end the movie on. And it would end the movie on, on a high note. Because that scene was very uplifting. And just to mirror it at the end would just broach what he's about. Now he's Superman. This movie was about him becoming Superman. And now he's Superman. And the next movie, we can have all that good stuff. Daily Planet and Lex Luthor and Kryptonite and Metallo and, Brainiac and Doomsday. Bring them all on, man. Parasite, who gives a shit? That's his Superman adventures. This movie was about him becoming Superman, and now he has become Superman. And I feel like that would have been just the best way to end the movie on an upbeat instead of him just snapping a neck. Oh, how, bye, I'm a reporter now, hey. Just end it on a, take a breath and just end the story on a beautiful note. Leave people uplifted. Because at the end of the day, even if it is a darker tone, Superman is supposed to uplift you. He is the best of us. Not because he's got superpowers, yeah, that's obvious, but because what he chooses to do with his life is more than what we would choose to do. So, yeah, man, on that thought, that was my little fanfix of Man of Steel. Keep tuned, man. I'm gonna do fanfics for Wonder Woman. There's not much to fix there. Batman, I'm gonna do another one. I'm gonna do another Green Lantern. I'm gonna do the Justice League movie. So if you guys like this video, man, just go ahead and drop a like, drop some comments, man. Anything you wanted to see in this movie that you didn't see, anything that you think, anything I said that you think was stupid and you would take out, go ahead, let's discuss, man. So yeah, you can check us out on Instagram, dropping loads, Ol Drunken Geek. And yeah, man, ODG out.